At 22, my 15-year-old cousin lied that I hurt her to avoid trouble, destroying my life for 9 years. When she finally confessed the truth, I exposed her manipulations and forced my entire family to face what really happened. I was 22 when my phone lit up with Mom and the word now. I was in the back of a grocery store, stacking boxes of cereal that tasted like childhood and dust, trying to remember which version of my life had room for plans. The call connected before I could think. Evan. Her voice already had that tightness, the kind it gets when she knows a truth before it's been born. Your aunt just called. What did you do to Riley? The boxes got lighter in my hands. Shame is helium when you don't know what it's attached to. What? You know. She was crying without tears. She's 15. There are sentences that detonate even when you don't hear the details. He's 15, she's 15. You know. I didn't. I said so. No one in that conversation cared. By the end of it, I was a danger. She was my poor niece, and my manager was waving from the back office like I'd set off a sprinkler. That night my number stopped working inside my own family. Group chats, gone. My sisters, Jess and Tessa, ghosted on command. Aunt Sharon messaged once, a paragraph so righteous it burned the screen, if you ever come within 50 feet of my daughter. I typed a reply I never sent, because I grew up in a house where arguing with a story makes the storyteller hungrier. The police did not show up. No paperwork appeared. It didn't matter. Shame is better at exile than court will ever be. I moved out of my mother's house into a sublet with a flickering light and a futon that bragged about college. I learned the shape of quiet from the inside. Friends fell away in a way that was almost polite. The ones who stayed learned to talk to me in side channels, like it was dangerous to keep a person like me in a phone. If you want the gore, there isn't any. Riley hadn't filed anything formal. She'd told her mom she'd been with me when she snuck out and got caught. He wouldn't leave me alone, is what the rumor version said. He kept texting me. The truth was more human and less cinematic. She lied because 15 is a wildfire of bad decisions and my name put up a neat firebreak between her and consequences. She needed a villain she could get to answer the phone. I stopped answering. For 9 years I got very good at being a ghost that paid rent on time. I worked night shifts under fluorescent lights and learned that coffee and sadness are different flavors of the same storm. I dated twice, girls with elastic hearts, and broke it off before they looked me up on Facebook and wondered why holidays didn't have my face in them. My mom sent me a Christmas card one year with a snowman on the front and no note inside, like we were two strangers at a mailbox. I drank. Not as a sport, as a slowing mechanism. If the nights could be blurred into one long evening, then maybe morning wouldn't feel like 24 separate betrayals. A counselor in a strip mall told me I wasn't a monster, which is a sentence that sounds like a curse until you've been called one for that long. On my 31st birthday, the year my beard finally admitted it was a beard, I got a message request from a name that hit my body before it hit my brain. Riley. I need to apologize, she wrote. The icon was a photo I didn't recognize, older, tan from a vacation she hadn't earned, eyes made bigger by a filter. I lied back then. I told Mom you bothered me. Because I snuck out and she caught me and I panicked. I'm in therapy and my therapist says I have to make amends. Make amends is a church phrase and a 12-step phrase and a thing people say when they want credit for returning items they stole. I stared at the screen until the words bled. Then I typed, you ruined my life. 3 dots. Nothing. Then, I know. I'm sorry. I was 15. I didn't understand what I was doing. 15 is a shield people hold up when they want you to ignore the arrow in your back. I scrolled. Attached were screenshots of her old texts to friends the night everything went nuclear. Mom's gonna kill me. I told her Evan kept trying to hang out so she'd stop yelling. Lol, she bought it. I'll fix it later. Later is a beautiful word when you give it a decade to rot. I saved everything. That's a sentence that makes me feel slick and also like a person who has learned. I took screenshots of her apology, saved the images to a folder called laundry, because no one clicks on laundry, exported the chat. I didn't reply for 2 days. It was the only power I owned. When I did, I asked for specifics. Tell me exactly what you told them, I wrote. She did, in flurries, first vague and then, when I didn't give her points for trying, with detail, she'd been caught by Aunt Sharon climbing out the back window at midnight. She told her she'd been with me because I'd always babysat when we were kids and it was a relationship adults would recognize. The next morning, she told her school counselor that I'd made her uncomfortable over text. The counselor called my mom, who called everyone. No formal report, no cops. Just family. I'll tell them, she promised. I'll call Aunt Sharon. I'll call your mom. I'll say I lied. She called. Or said she did. A week went by. Jess texted me a meme like nothing. My mother liked an old photo I posted of a sandwich. Riley messaged, they're not ready. Mom thinks I'm protecting you. Protecting me. I have never wanted to throw a phone harder than that day. Instead I put it down and went for a walk in a neighborhood that knew nothing about us and sat on a bench like the world might memorialize me if I sat still enough. When I got back, the dots were still bouncing. Can we meet? I'm engaged now. I'm not that person. I want to look you in the eye and say I'm sorry. We met. I picked a noon cafe with windows and tables too close, the kind where apologies have to behave because they can be overheard. She arrived late, chip smile first, arms spread like a small invasion. Oh my God, she said, looking me up and down like I was a throwback trend. You look so adult. Time will do that, I said. She ordered a lavender latte like she was auditioning to be forgiven. She told me about therapy and cycles of trauma and how Aunt Sharon overreacts sometimes. You know how she is. She dripped language she learned in offices on the internet. When I asked her what she was going to do to fix it, she blinked. I said I'm sorry, she said, like maybe the latte had paid the bill. You told people I hurt you, I said. I lost my family. I lost 9 years. I lost the version of myself that believed rooms were neutral. You didn't just tell a story. You moved into my life and rearranged all the furniture. She stared at her drink. I was a kid. You're 24, I said. Now you're an adult. What are you going to do with that? She promised, again, to talk to everyone. She promised she'd write a group text and clear me. She promised she'd pull Aunt Sharon into a call, my mom too, and say it out loud. She promised all her verbs like a bouquet. I didn't believe her, but I was so tired of holding my own life up with one hand that I let the promise lean on me for a week. Nothing happened. Correction, something happened. She started following me online. Liking posts. Commenting on photos of my dog with hard eyes like we were cousins again. She DM'd my friend Tyler, "Is Evan okay? He still seems angry. He's always had a temper." Tyler screenshotted it to me and wrote, "Bro, WTF." She DM'd my boss from the warehouse, saying she was concerned because I'd been through so much and maybe the late shifts weren't healthy. My boss called me into his office and said, "I don't want drama, man," and reassigned me to days. Which meant fewer hours. Which meant less rent. Which meant the apology was costing me money. I blocked her. She made a new account and messaged again. "You can't heal if you keep shutting people out," she wrote, like a fortune cookie that drank a podcast. I blocked that one, too. She emailed. I filtered. She texted from a number with the wrong area code, then another. I recognized the shape of an addiction disguised as amends. The only person who broke rank was Owen. The fiancé. He messaged me at 1:17 a.m. on a Wednesday like he'd lit the message with a match. Man, I didn't know until 3 months ago. She told me then. I told her to fix it. She said she would. I keep waiting. I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner. I stared at the phone until the word slid. We met the next day in a park that tolerates grown men on benches during work hours. He looked like every good boy in a wedding photo, part haircut, part hope. She told me what she told her mom back then, he said. She told me you didn't do anything. He made a helpless face and I hated him a little for having one. I thought she fixed it. Sharon is. Yeah. He exhaled like the air had turned to syrup. I told Riley I wouldn't marry her until she apologized the right way. I believed him because he seemed like the kind of man who makes ultimatums in sentences and not explosions. He showed me texts, Riley telling him she'd handled it, then her doubling back and calling me unstable when he pushed. I took pictures of his screen with my phone. He didn't flinch. "If you need me to say this to anyone, I will," he said. Her therapist, your mom, a judge, a wall. I told him I needed him to say it to himself first and then to Sharon. He said he would. 2 days later, he texted, "Talk to Sharon. She says you're manipulating me and Riley's in a vulnerable place." He added 3 vomiting emojis and the words "I hate this" like a prayer. Jess finally texted me, not a meme, an invite. "Come to dinner Sunday. Mom wants to talk." After 9 years of silence, the concept of talk felt both ridiculous and like a fire alarm. I went. The table was set like a truce, paper plates that could be thrown away, no wine. My mother hugged me long and then corrected herself, as if hugging a boy with a shadow might attract lightning. "I'm glad you came," she said, which is a polite way of saying we're going to try to pretend we didn't set you on fire. Jess buzzed like an apology. Tessa sat with her arms crossed, head on the other planet she goes to when things get sharp. Aunt Sharon didn't show. Riley did, 20 minutes late, breezing in with a casserole dish and a lipstick that made her mouth look like a present. "Hey, family," she sang, like theme music. She looked at me. "Evan. You look well." I could feel Owen's text in my pocket like a receipt. Riley set the casserole down and launched into a speech that had clearly been practiced in a bathroom mirror. "I just want to say how sorry I am for everything that happened when I was a kid. I had a lot going on. And I'm in therapy. I've learned so much about boundaries and..." "Say it," I cut in. My mother made the little gasp she reserves for when someone breaks a plate. "Say what you did." Riley's eyes flicked to Jess, to my mother, to the casserole, to her phone face down on the counter. "I lied," she said finally, thin as a hair. "I said things that weren't true. About me," I said, "because people like Riley will apologize to the room if you let them." "About you," she said to the casserole. Jess spoke up, voice small. "So he didn't." "He didn't," Riley said, annoyed that the scene wasn't going the way she wrote it. My mother pressed her napkin, a paper thing dissolving in her hands. "I should have asked more questions," she said, which is a very mother way to apologize and also forgive herself at the same time. "I needed you to ask any," I said. She flinched. I felt like I'd kicked a dog, except the dog had bitten me and then told the neighborhood I was feral. After dinner, Riley found me on the porch with the good air. The street smelled like rain and laundry. "I'm doing my best," she said, clasping her hands in a way that reminded me of Aunt Sharon's church. "People forget I was a kid." "You're not now," I said. "So stop acting like one." She held my gaze for the first time all evening. "You're never going to forgive me," she said, like that was a moral failing on my part. "I can feel it. You're just stuck." "I'm stuck with your story," I said. "You're not." She went quiet. Then, "Owen thinks we should take space. He thinks you're making me feel guilty on purpose." "I think you feel guilty because you did something wrong," I said. She smiled, small and mean. "You've always had a temper," she said. And there it was, the reframe. The angle. The version she'd been sending people for weeks. I lasted until Tuesday before the next move. HR emailed, "Quick chat this afternoon?" 3 p.m. My stomach skittered. The subject line had that cheerful vagueness office people use when something heavy is coming. I walked into the conference room at 2:58 and found my supervisor, a woman from HR I'd never met in person, and Riley. She stood when I entered, eyes already shining, hands twisting the strap of a bag. "Evan," she breathed, loud enough for the hallway. I wanted to do this the compassionate way. HR smiled at me like she'd learned how by watching a webinar. "We just want to make sure everyone feels safe in the workplace," she said. Riley dabbed at an eye, the tiniest theater. "He's been obsessed with me," she said softly, voice pitched for sympathy. "He keeps showing up." I laughed then. It wasn't the sound I meant to make. It was a bark, a thing startled out of a person. "You showed up here," I said. "This is where I work." Riley didn't look at me. She looked at HR, then at my supervisor. "He's unstable," she whispered. "I feel unsafe." And when HR turned to me with the practiced concern of someone who has policies for hurricanes, I realized with the coldness of a person watching himself through glass that unless I handled the next sentence perfectly, Riley was about to write a brand new version of my life in a conference room with laminate walls and a potted plant that had never seen the sun. The conference room smelled like dry erase marker and the kind of plant you can't kill. HR folded her hands. "Evan, we're committed to a safe environment. Riley has expressed." I slid a folder onto the table like a dealer who finally has a hand. I'd labeled it laundry as a private joke. Inside, printed screenshots of her Facebook confession, the lol she bought at text from age 15, the DM she sent my boss, and a short letter I'd drafted the night before that said, in calm, boring words, "Please direct all concerns through email. I will not meet with my accuser without counsel present." I had highlighted dates. "Paper does better work than outrage." HR read. My supervisor read, eyes climbing one line behind. Riley shifted, a performance note missed. "These are taken out of context," she said quickly. "I was a child. He's dangerous when he's angry." "Look at the timestamp," I said, not to her, to HR. "Last month." That's her admitting she lied. I turned another page. "And here's the message to my boss about late shifts being unsafe." That's after the apology. Riley's eyes flashed the way they always do right before she pivots. "I'm trying to make amends," she said, adding tremble. "He keeps attacking me online." "Show the posts," HR said, a quiet miracle of process. Riley couldn't. There weren't any. HR's face didn't move much, but something in the room changed temperature. "I'm invoking our visitor policy," my supervisor said, almost relieved to have a policy to invoke. "Riley, you're not permitted on site unless invited by HR. Evan, you and I will put a no-contact plan in writing, digital only, HR CC'd, work-related matters only." Sound good? It sounded like air. Riley bristled. "So you're just taking his side?" "We're taking the side of documentation," HR said. "If you have a formal complaint, you can file it in writing with dates and evidence. Otherwise, we're done here." Riley left in staccato heel beats, then stopped in the doorway, turned the volume up one notch, and said for the hallway, "I forgive you, Evan," like a curse disguised as mercy. The plant kept not dying. I sat for a second after the door closed. The HR woman slid the folder back. "If you get anything else, emails, texts, send it to me," she said. "Also, I'm sorry. This should have been handled 9 years ago." Outside, my phone pinged. "Owen, she's there?" I wrote back was. "Tried the act. Didn't land." He replied before I could pocket the phone, "We're done. I can't live with this anymore. If you need a statement, I'm your guy." I didn't cheer. Breakups aren't trophies. But a keystone had shifted. I made an appointment at a legal clinic the next morning. The attorney, mid-30s, sleeves rolled, listened, flipped through laundry, and said, "You're a good archivist. Civil harassment restraining order is realistic. Also a cease and desist for the workplace interference." She dictated a biff email, brief, informative, friendly, firm, to Riley and Aunt Sharon that I sent from a new address. "From now on, contact me in writing only. Do not contact my employer, landlord, or friends. Any future accusations must be directed to law enforcement. Any violation will be addressed legally. No heat. Just parameters." We filed for a temporary restraining order that afternoon. I walked out of the courthouse with a paper that said "Do not contact this man" in a font that didn't care about families. It wasn't revenge. It was oxygen. 2 hours later, Riley posted a black square Instagram with a caption about survivors being re-traumatized by abusers who weaponize the legal system. Jess sent it to me with a single eye roll emoji and, beneath it, "Mom says she wants to see the documents." Small miracle, Mom wanted paper. I scanned everything: Riley's apology, the lol she bought it, Owen's text where he said she told me you didn't do anything, the HR no contact, the TRO. I sent it in one email with no adjectives. Mom didn't reply for a day. When she did, it was 2 words: I'm sorry. It didn't feel like absolution. It felt like a door that had been stuck so long finally remembered it had hinges. Tessa called next. She doesn't do calls. I found something, she said, and I could hear a closet door clicking in the background. A box in Mom's attic with all these old journals of Riley's and a phone. From sophomore year, she laughed without humor. Apparently, our cousin kept drafts. We met at her place. On Tessa's dining table, a stack of spiral notebooks with doodles in the margins and titles like stories and things to say. In one, a page with bullet points under the header if I get caught. I read them and felt my stomach fold. Plan A, say Evan texted me, he's always around, Mom will believe it. Plan B, say Leah's party, blame Leah. Only use B if A doesn't work. A line below in a different pen, fix later. A phone in the box had a notes app titled Apologies, phrases identical to what she'd used on me at the cafe. Tessa plugged it in. The lock screen lit with a date, 2014. She handed me a tissue because she knows I don't cry pretty. I'm done protecting her story, she said. Jess is too. Mom's getting there. Owen added a brick the next day, a voicemail he'd kept from Riley when he first confronted her. I told them I made it up. They like drama too much. I'll try again when it's convenient. He signed a declaration from my attorney, under penalty of perjury, that he'd been told explicitly I hadn't harmed Riley and that Riley had admitted she used me to get out of trouble. He sent it with a line that read, I wish I'd had a spine sooner. We all do, Owen. Aunt Sharon remained a fortress. She texted Jess that we were ganging up on a vulnerable young woman and doing Evan's PR. Then she created a group chat with Mom and half the cousins titled Truth and posted a paragraph about cycles of abuse. Mom replied with a PDF, the TRO. Jess sent the bullet point plan from the journal. The chat went silent like a stage when the lights go out. Mom asked for a sit down. Neutral ground, the church basement where we've eaten potato salad for 2 generations. She invited Sharon, who said she'd only come if I wasn't there. Mom replied, he will be there. That sentence might be the bravest thing she's ever put in writing. We sat at a long folding table under a buzzing fluorescent and a crooked painting of a shepherd. Jess on my left, Tessa on my right like matching bookends, Mom across from me, hands around a coffee she didn't drink. Owen came and sat near the end, quiet, a notarized statement folded in his pocket. 2 of our cousins showed up and did that thing people do when they try to look neutral and end up looking confused. Aunt Sharon arrived late with a binder. Riley was with her, eyes already glassy. There was no moderator. So I did the only thing I know how to do now, I read the record. I started with dates. June 14th, Riley tells Mom she was with me. June 15th, school counselor looped in, no report to police. June 16th, family group chat blocks me. Fast forward 9 years, Riley messages I lied, sends screenshots, meets at cafe, promises to fix, contacts my boss instead. I slid copies of everything down the table like communion. I didn't look at Riley. I looked at the paper. Sharon snorted. Anyone can fake screenshots. Owen spoke for the first time. I was there, he said quietly. She told me Evan didn't do anything. I begged her to fix it. He laid his statement on the table. I'll sign another one right here if you need it. Riley's mouth twisted. You always side with whoever is loudest, she said to him, and then to the room, I was a child. He's always had issues. He's making this up because he hates me. Tessa slid the journal forward, open to if I get caught. Did Evan write your plan? She asked. Did he write plan A, say Evan texted me? Because the handwriting looks a lot like yours. Riley's jaw worked. She reached for the notebook, Jess put a palm on it. Nope, Jess said. This gets scanned. Sharon opened her binder like a defense attorney and pulled out a printed email. From Riley's therapist, she announced triumphantly, though names were blacked out. Confidentiality forbids details, but it confirms she's in treatment and that confronting can be harmful to the healing process. She looked at me like she'd dropped a bomb. I nodded. I hope she heals, I said. Healing includes telling the truth. Mom cleared her throat, that old soft signal meaning pay attention. Riley, she said, voice trembling like a bridge, I believed you when you were 15. I see proof now that we were wrong. She looked at me and the years collected in her eyes all at once. Evan, I am sorry. Not in the cutesy way. In the way where I own that I chose a story over a son. I stared at the cheap wood of the table so I wouldn't cry at a shepherd. Thank you, I said, because sometimes 2 words are heavy. Riley broke then, not into sobs, into rage. The mask cracked, the words lost their polish. You love drama, she spat at all of us. You love picking on me. I said I was sorry. What more do you want, blood? She stood so fast her chair skittered. Fine. Keep your witch hunt. Owen, don't call me. She stormed out, Sharon chasing, binder under her arm like a shield. The room exhaled like a long-held breath. Jess went to the sink and ran water for no reason other than to do something with her hands. Tessa scanned the journal pages on the copier in the office, each beep a metronome. Mom sat, small, like a person who has finally put down a bag she shouldn't have been carrying. Owen stared at the exit and then at his folded statement and then at me. "If you press charges, I'll testify," he said. "If you don't, I'll still testify to whoever needs to hear that she told the truth privately and lied publicly." I didn't press criminal charges for 2014, the statute of limitations and the non-report made the path look like quicksand. I did press life charges. The judge made my temporary order permanent for a year, no contact, no third parties, no work interference. HR sent me an email officially confirming Riley was barred from our property. My landlord added her name to the do not buzz list. I blocked the last of the unknown numbers that used phrases like "you'll regret this" and filed the messages with the case number like dull trophies. Sharon tried to run a counter-campaign and found the audience had shrunk. Our cousin stopped forwarding her paragraphs. The group chat named Truth went quiet and then got renamed Recipes because Jess is a petty genius. Thanksgiving came and Mom set a place for me and didn't apologize for it. Tessa made a joke about the shepherd painting that made us all snort laugh into the mashed potatoes. Nobody mentioned Riley. Silence is dangerous when it hides harm. It is holy when it stops giving it air. Months later, Owen emailed a link to a wedding registry. Not Riley's. His. Different woman. Soft eyes, firm spine. In the message he wrote, "I learned something about love. Thank you for not making me learn it the hard way in court." I wrote back, "Get a mixer. Trust me." It felt like sending a small boat out into a calmer ocean. Riley did what people like her do when an audience stops clapping. She found a new stage. I heard she checked into a program for a while. I hope she stays. I heard Sharon switch therapists twice because they didn't get it. I stopped keeping track after that, not because I'm magnanimous, but because there's an economy to peace and I was tired of being poor. My mother and I built something again, slow carpentry. She didn't demand forgiveness as a ticket to dinner. She gave it room to arrive if it wanted. Sometimes we sit on her porch and talk about nothing, the neighbor's ridiculous lawn flamingos, the way the light hits the street at 6:40, the stray cat that thinks we're gullible. Sometimes she says, "I still can't believe I," and stops, and I let the sentence be a bridge to nowhere. Not everything needs crossing. HR promoted me, not because of this, but because I am annoyingly good at logistics and apparently workplaces love men who show up and don't set fires. I started sleeping like a person who isn't waiting for footsteps to pause outside his door. I went back to the counselor in the strip mall and said, "Okay, what do we do with a life that isn't just damage control?" He grinned and handed me a pen. "If you're waiting for the part where everything ties up in a bow, I don't have that. I have paper in a fireproof box, a no contact order tacked to the inside of my closet like a talisman, and a family text thread where Jess sends pictures of her terrible attempts at sourdough and Tessa replies with memes that would get her banned from a PTA. I have a mom who says I believe you without looking at anyone else first. I have a phrase I repeat when I feel the old heat rise: apologies are verbs. When people ask me now what I want from Riley, I surprise us both by saying, nothing. I don't want a better speech. I don't want her to cry correctly. If she ever does the actual work, public retraction, reparations to the people she harmed with her story, therapy that looks like bricks and not hashtags, that's between her and whatever she calls God. My boundary is boring. She doesn't get to live in my head rent-free anymore. I keep the laundry folder, but I don't carry it. It lives on a shelf with my passport and the lease. Sometimes peace is a binder and a lock. Sometimes it's a Sunday dinner where nobody uses the word forgiveness and yet somehow everyone chews with their mouths closed and passes the salt without commentary. Sometimes it's a conference room plant that keeps not dying. And sometimes it's the small, stubborn fact that 9 years too late, someone finally knocked, and I answered the door with a record, not a speech.